Scholar in Dawntrail hasn't really changed much from its previous iteration during Endwalker. It primarily plays the same with some additional traded enhancements that further increase the job's playstyle. There is some strange mix of powerful healing with some interesting design decisions by Square Enix to keep the job compelling enough to play. It feels that Square Enix almost receded from their previous iteration of Scholar and further added more components to the Scholar's toolkit that made the job feel inconvenient to play, mainly through the use of Seraphism. Now don't get me wrong, Scholar is insanely strong and still very fun to play, especially for players who love those avenues of optimization due to the inconvenient nature of the kit. This is further bolstered in Dawntrail, where not only does energy drain still exist in its toolkit, but also dissipation remains the same, meaning you lose the failure for 30 seconds in combat. Recitation currently also does not affect manifestation or accession, which means if you use Recitation during Seraphism, you are locked into only using it on Indama or Excogitation. And now with the addition of said Seraphism, there are 3 separate trances that lock you out of specific parts of your toolkit. Using Dissipation locks you out of the fairy abilities Seraph and Seraphism. Using Seraph locks you out of Dissipation, Fey Union, and Fey Blessing, and using Seraphism locks you out of Dissipation. Scholar players are going to have to be very meticulous when they are using certain aspects of their toolkit, as other parts will become inaccessible as a result. With that being said, in this video I will be giving my first impressions of the Scholar job in Dawntrail through my experience leveling it and playing it in the new Extreme Trials. Let's move on to the first topic, which will be Chain Stratagem and Baneful Impacton. Now, I was actually pretty surprised at how enjoyable this button was to press. I wasn't really expecting too much from an extra button press every 120 seconds, but with the small range of radius, I found myself slightly optimizing which targets I want to use it on in dungeons to make sure it hit every single mob. I've also seen some complaints that the radius is only 5 yalms, but I actually revel in that fact because these small quote-unquote inconvenient things actually require you to strategize to a degree. In single target scenarios with the quality of life change where Chain Stratagem is now 20 seconds, you can now use Baneful Impacton and 6 energy drains under the effects of it without requiring Swiftcast now. This is a small buff for the optimization of damage on Scholar, more so in progression or environments where you did not want to use Swiftcast for damage, no longer netting you a tiny loss in buff contribution. Scholar's buff contribution is also not something to scoff at, as under the right conditions it can drive a lot of damage under them. Overall, great skill, great change. Broil was changed from 295 to 310 potency, equaling out to be a 15 potency increase. What's interesting though is that Rune 2 was not increased to 235 to compensate for it, meaning it still rests at 220, making the loss of pressing it over a Broil 90 potency instead of 75. I actually really hope this change continues forward, as now Scholars will be more incentivized to plan their movement and off GCD usage better, as the minuscule damage loss racks up over longer encounters, as every 4 Rune 2s that you use end up being a 360 potency loss, to which is slightly more than 1 Broil cast. Furthermore, this also gives the Scholar job a slightly higher skill ceiling, as now the gap between players who optimize their Broil cast and players who don't will be slightly larger. While Broil's potency got increased, our Divorce potency did not, meaning our 2 target spam is slightly weaker, only being a 50 potency gain now. However, lucky for us, we are now the only healer that has a spammable AoE on 2 targets, as Astra and Sage are no longer potency positive. Recitation is as broken as I thought it would be in the Meteor build, but it also just feels great to use. It is hands down without a doubt the strongest ability that Scholars have obtained in Dawntrail. With its cooldown reduced to 60 seconds, it allows Scholars to alternate between a heavy deployment tactic shield and a powerful guaranteed critical concentration shield on powerful AoE damage attacks. This means for fights where there's a massive spike in damage every 60 seconds, think of fights like P12 and E12, this lets Scholars not only manage their tools better, but just straight up give them more mitigation to their already extensive mitigation toolkit. Recitation also has the benefit of being prepped 15 seconds in advance, meaning with excellent play and proper timing, you can hypothetically shield damage closer than 60 seconds in difference preemptively to manipulate the cooldown of the skill. I cannot understate how massive of a buff this is to the mitigation aspect of Scholar, as Sage, its direct competition, did not receive anything to the same magnitude. Zoe is still a 90-second cooldown that cannot guarantee critical shields. I've mentioned this in my Meteor analysis video, but I'll reinstate it again. Zoe is not only the equivalent to deployment tactics, but also Recitation. When using Zoe on your Creation Prognosis, we have to consider the lowest possible healing value when it comes to planning. Therefore, when using Zoe on your Creation Prognosis, it ends up being a flat 540 potency shield. Similarly, when we use Recitation on Consultation, it also ends up being a 540 potency shield. This is because Recitation guarantees an automatic critical on the shield, which means that this is the lowest common value, while Zoe always has to be taken as a non-critical. Not to mention, Recitation has a hidden benefit. It scales with the critical modifier, meaning a Recitation boosted Consultation shield actually has a higher potency than its base of 540. This is due to the fact that as players get more critical hit stat, the base mod of 1.5 actually keeps increasing. There is one downside to Recitation in its current state, which we spoke about prior in the introduction of the video, and that is that it currently does not synergize with Seraphism, meaning Recitation cannot be used with Manifestation or Session. This makes things pretty awkward for Scholar players, as now we have to be a bit vigilant when we want to use a Reci boosted deployment tactics or Concitation, as it cannot be during a period where we want to use Seraphism. I'm not sure if this is just an oversight or a bug. Currently the tooltip does not say it works on either of these two skills, but in practicality it should not matter, as they are equal potency to a dissipation buff Adlo or Concitation, and further adds more friction to its already abraded toolkit. Funnily enough, if both Endom and Excogitation are on cooldown during your Seraphism window, something that happens to be during an Expert dungeon actually, you'll not be able to utilize Recitation at all, and it will dissipate, wink, and go on cooldown. Now moving on to Scholar's latest new ability, Seraphism. This ability is so multifaceted that you can practically use it in any situation. It's the Swiss blade of the Scholar's toolkit. You can employ it for movement mechanics that require healing, similar to Wrath of Flames and Ekpyrosis. You can use it to simply boost the potency of your shields against burst damage. You can use it for high damaging situations like Harrowing Hell, where there's a large increase in damage for a sustained period, letting you make quick work of it. You can use it as a recovery tool if you need to handle incoming damage and your healing partner is dead, and if there's just nothing specific to use it on at all, you can just simply activate it for the healing over time effect. Seraphism is incredibly versatile, but its primary use will likely be to thoroughly increase your healing output and healing while on the move. That being said, while it is a very strong healing tool, with Scholar's current MP economy, players will have to be very cautious when doing encounters with very little breaks, as it will be incredibly easy to run out of MP at lower piety levels when using one too many GCD heals. Seraphism is also not as strong as a mitigation tool as previously thought, as there's also the drawback of Recitation not working on Manifestation or Session, and it does severely nerf its mitigation possibilities, as we're unable to rely on critical healing, meaning we have to take it as a 432 potency shield. This however can change if Square Enix decides to adjust this in a later patch, allowing the use of Recitation under Seraphism, meaning our center focus might shift to a more mitigative aspect. Looking at the new fights that Square Enix launched in 7.0, currently both extremes actually seem to favor Seraphism, as in Extreme 1, there's the attacks Scourge of Fire and Hail of Feathers, while Extreme 2 has Projection of Truth and Duty's Edge. Both fights capitalize on the movement and healing power throughput aspect of the ability, giving players a showcase of what to expect when utilizing it in Savage. Moving on to a quick synopsis of my experience while playing it through the expansion, playing Scholar in dungeons feels fantastic. You have a wide array of tools at your disposal for both the party and the tank. With Swiftcast cooldown reduced to 40 seconds, I actually found myself using Recitation ad loquium on the tank, and then Swiftcasting ad loquium on myself during a pull to deploy onto the tank, and when I blinked, Swiftcast was ready to be used again. With the addition of Seraphism, this only became more prevalent, as timing a Seraphism use right at the end of a trash pack will enable you the ability to instant cast manifestations on the tank as they are pulling to the next group. This technique is especially beneficial for players who may struggle to keep up with incoming damage on the tank before they have solidified a pull. Once you gain the reduced recast of Recitation at level 98, Scholars will ultimately be able to place a Reci boosted Adlo on the tank for each trash pack before it begins, giving them a very strong shield that will cover almost all and any damage until they have solidified that pull as well. Alternatively, you can also use this on Excogitation, but I generally prefer using it on Adlo in dungeons. Scholar overall is a strong barrier healer, emphasizing heavy mitigation while also benefiting from the powerful heals provided by the fairy. It has a versatile healing toolkit for almost every scenario with the newest edition of Seraphism, making it a well-rounded healer for any content. Scholar remains a strong pillar of the party through its use of expedient and strong mitigation, providing the party with more room for error compared to its competition. However, the job's fundamentals will still feel a bit clunky due to the need for managing Dissipation, the Fairy, and Aetherful Healing, along with the lack of free instant cast outside of its dot. This complexity can offer players avenues of optimization and improvement if they seek it though. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the comment section and in my next video where we will be going over Astrologian. Peace!